Welcome back to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm Joey Dwyer here on the floor at Memorial Gymnasium after Vanderbilt's 74-71 win over Ole Miss. And obviously Ole Miss is a team that's at the bottom of the league. Came into this game 1-8, but it's certainly a big win for Vanderbilt. And what it avoided is probably the biggest story today. Vanderbilt was on a 3-game losing streak heading into this game, coming off a 57-point loss to Alabama. It doesn't even sound real when you say it. There were questions about where was the locker room at? Were they believing in the message? How much did Jerry Stackhouse need this game? And it felt like Vanderbilt really needed this, and it got it. So just a tremendous win for Vanderbilt. Maybe not the most impressive win it's had this season, as in beating Arkansas or going and beating some of these tougher teams on their schedule or winning at Georgia on the road, but it's a win that Vanderbilt desperately needed, and they got it. So just a tremendous win on the back of Tyron Lawrence and Liam Robbins, two of Vanderbilt's veterans who hadn't really been big factors lately. Liam Robbins was obviously out for 2 weeks, was a little rusty, as Jerry Stackhouse said on Tuesday. Tyron Lawrence was benched due to a coach's decision. Even before that, a few games, had some high scoring outputs, maybe not on the highest efficiency. Today was tremendously efficient, went 7 for 10 from the field, something that we hadn't really seen from him throughout the year. Looked confident going downhill, and Stackhouse said after the game that Lawrence is a guy who he thinks can play at the next level, and certainly looked that way today. Lawrence looked kind of like Vanderbilt's alpha offensively, and Robbins looked the same. Robbins' biggest impact was probably on the defensive end, though. Had 7 blocks and altered a few more shots than that. So much to like from those two. And if Vanderbilt's going to win and make this season salvageable, it's going to have to be those two guys who are really leading the way, especially if Jordan Wright misses more time with the concussion protocols. Stackhouse said after the game that Wright's feeling a little bit better. So certainly some reason for optimism there, but today was just a tremendously important win for Vanderbilt, and it got it on the back of their two veterans who were their two leading scorers, and even without Wright, found a way to win this game. It just felt like they're so much better defensively with Liam Robbins, and there's not much arguing with that after what we saw today. Just feels like we need to put this game in perspective a little bit. Obviously, those are great things to see, but it feels like at some point we can't think of every win as a turning point, or this is a huge win. This was a win against a team that came into this game 1-8, and Vanderbilt obviously needed it. It obviously needed to kind of show that the locker room wasn't lost on the message. The locker room was still together, and they still believed in kind of what they could be as a group. But it's Ole Miss. This game was reminiscent of a game that would happen on the first night of the SEC tournament, and Vanderbilt couldn't pull away from a 1-8 team in the league. Although Ole Miss, I do think, is a little bit better than that and has their best guard back. Kind of have to put this in perspective and say, I think it was a noon game. The crowd was quiet for a lot of it until the very end when Vanderbilt pulled away on that 10-0 run, which we'll get into in a second. But it just feels like this is maybe a win you need to put in perspective a little bit rather than running for joy. It feels like this game is probably more about what Vanderbilt avoided than anything about what Vanderbilt has to gain. It's 4-6 in the league. Certainly could be worse at this point. A lot of people felt it would be, but you play who's on the schedule, but also you kind of consider Vanderbilt's be one ranked team this year, and Ole Miss is certainly not one of those. So kind of have to put it in perspective and say, hey, it's an SEC win. It's a nice bounce back win, but also at the same time, it's not a win that's going to put you in the NCAA tournament, and just kind of have to find that balance when evaluating this one. It just felt like a lot of encouraging signs, but also felt like the team they were playing maybe wasn't on the level that it's a win that's considered to be impressive should have been against. So Vanderbilt had some positive signs. The turnovers were certainly a positive sign. Only 7 turnovers, I think. Only 3 in the first half as well. That was kind of the key to things. Vanderbilt only shot 23% from beyond the arc in the first half, 36% from the field, but went into the half with a lead. And that was huge for them to just go into the half with a lead, showing kind of that they can respond to that adversity they saw this week. And I guess to an extent, it's self-created adversity, but Vanderbilt just responding that way. Although it was a little bit dead in pregame foremost from what I saw, Vanderbilt came out and played hard, although it was a bit of a flat start. Just found a way to kind of rally together and win this game. I said a lot last year when Notre Dame was making an NCAA tournament push. For them, it was more about avoiding the bad loss. Today, I agree. I think it's more about avoiding the disaster that could have been. Vanderbilt would have been on a 4-game losing streak had they lost this game. You go to Tennessee Tennessee comes here on Wednesday to play, and then Saturday you go to Gainesville. That could be six straight losses as you head into Valentine's Day, and certainly not something you want if you're Vanderbilt, and especially with the implications it could have on the offseason. So it was really important that Vanderbilt got this win, and it did. So just a gritty win, as Liam Robbins said. Felt like this game was back and forth. There wasn't much separation between these teams for a lot of this game, and the 10-0 run Vanderbilt had late really helped to put this one away, and that was probably the biggest stretch of the game. It felt like Ole Miss was a 3 away here or there to kind of get back in this game. It felt like Vanderbilt could put them away and throw the knockout punch a few times throughout the second half, but they just didn't, and Ole Miss finally figured out, I guess Vanderbilt finally figured out that, hey, if we can hit a 3 here, we can put them away, and Trey Thomas hit that huge 3 on the other end there, and things kind of started to get rolling. Ezra Magnon got in the lane, got a switch, and got a layup. It's 5-0. Liam Robbins hit a few free throws, and the rest was really history. Vanderbilt went up 11 there. Almost let Ole Miss back in the game, but ended up being a 3-point win for Vanderbilt. So obviously a win you like, but it also felt like the first night of the NCAA or the SEC tournament, and that's not a place Vanderbilt wants to be. Right now they wouldn't be there if the season ended today, but gonna have to fight to get out of that cellar, and the next 2 games are gonna be really challenging for them. Florida on the road is certainly hard next Saturday, and then Tennessee here feels like a game Vanderbilt would get up for, and will probably show a lot of positive signs about the locker room and kind of the state of it, if so. But Vanderbilt at this point in the season just needs really anything they can get, needs some positive momentum as you head into the offseason for a lot of different reasons, a lot of future implications on maybe what the staff could look like, what the roster could look like. Have to have some positive momentum carried into the new year and into the offseason, and this is a step towards that. If you go on a 6-game losing streak in mid-February, it's really hard to bounce back from that, especially when your 7th game is on the road, although it's South Carolina. It's a tough game to win, and Vanderbilt just had to avoid that, and it did today. I think that was the most important thing. Maybe they didn't come out with their hair on fire like maybe I had hoped to see after the embarrassing loss it had, but it didn't look like Alabama did against Vanderbilt, but it looked like a team that took pride in what they wanted to do and felt that this was on the table for them, and it's our game to go get, and Vanderbilt did that. A lot to like from the veterans. Miles Studi had 9. Obviously mentioned Lawrence and mentioned Robbins, but just a nice all-around effort from Vanderbilt. Colin Smith showed some positive signs. 3 for 3 from the field, showed that he's kind of a veteran, and, well, maybe not a veteran, but showed some kind of veteran flashes, had that little post fadeaway about where I'm standing, and really just looked a little bit more composed. Wanted to note also the 2 big lineup, Quentin Malloy-Brown and Robbins started together. They commented on the game after and said that both of those guys are maybe a little more comfortable playing with each other now, and that's certainly a sight to see for Vanderbilt, who's still toying with its lineups. Jerry Stackhouse still hasn't settled on a starting lineup he likes. This one looked a lot better than it did on Tuesday night, though. That was a unbelievable starting lineup. Today was a lot more conventional with Ezra and Trey Thomas. Tyron Lawrence, who I was kind of surprised started, but you see why, and you see kind of Stack's message resonating with him a little bit. I think Tyron Lawrence's play is probably the number one kind of thing you look at with encouragement after today and just say, wow, the message got through to him despite the benching. And Stack after the game said that's maybe something they want to do down the stretch a little bit more, is just go 1-on-1, 2-on-2 in terms of kind of telling guys what they expect out of them rather than talking about it in full film sessions. So a lot to like for Vanderbilt today. Like I said, feel like it's kind of repetitive, but it's a game that was tremendously important for Vanderbilt. Maybe their most important game of the season, maybe Jerry Stackhouse's most important game of the season, but also one that you have to put in perspective and say, if they can't take this into Tennessee, it doesn't mean all that much. And if they can't take it into Gainesville, it doesn't mean all that much. So good win for Vanderbilt, especially without Jordan Wright. Their kind of stopper still protected the rim at a high level. Liam Robbins really made Ole Miss one-dimensional down the stretch, and that was certainly a sight to see. Liam Robbins just completely changes the game as compared to the last Vanderbilt game we saw without Robbins. It just felt like Robbins was a complete difference maker there. Had 12 rebounds, almost had a triple-double with 3 more blocks, and it felt like he altered at least 3 more shots than the 7 blocks he had. So Robbins was phenomenal tonight. Lawrence probably had one of his better games of the year, and they led Vanderbilt to a 74-71 win over Ole Miss, one that Vanderbilt really needed. So thank you guys for watching. God bless, and time to go off to do a doubleheader, Wilson versus Liberty right after this. So read our work on vandysports.com. Thank you guys for the support, and God bless. Peace.